Great and distinguished group, and because we have little time and a scary countdown clock, we're going to go straight into specific examples of the wonderful approaches toward reducing waste that we have on our panel, which is more or less the subject of the day. And we have some very alluring accents about to come. So get ready to be delighted by accents. So our first is Harry, who's going to be telling us about Hilton internationally and the winnowing program they have and how it translated into a green Ramadan.
Oh, thanks very much, and thanks everyone for having me, and I hope my accent lives up to those expectations. I'm Harry, and I lead Travel with Purpose strategy for our 1,000 Hilton portfolio hotels in the region of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think with hotels is we're yes people. You know, we struggle to say no. If the guest has a request, we see to that request, which is fantastic if you're staying at one of our hotels. But it can create a bit of a default waste scenario. So as part of our Travel with Purpose strategy to drive positive impact, we set really ambitious carbon, water, waste goals, which included a target to implement a food waste management program in every single one of our kitchens globally. So you can imagine thousands of kitchens, thousands of chefs to engage. Partnerships were not only key for us scaling up, but they were actually key for us creating these solutions. So we, first of all, found a data partner, and that's with Winnow. We're really proud to have the Winnow Vision system in over 200 of our hotels. And the Winnow system is incredibly easy for our hotel team members to use. They throw waste in the bin as they normally would, and the system automatically identifies, tracks, and tells the chef what's going to waste. So straight away, the previously invisible waste in a food waste bin is now visible, and chefs can make decisions based on that.
Now, I'm going to stop you for
Please
a sec,
do.
because there's lots of rival systems like this that claim to do the same thing for chefs. Why did you pick Winnow, and is it in use in the U.S. or various other countries, not the U.S.?
Yes, great question. So when we set about looking at this goal, we undertook a trial with Winnow and a few of their competitors, and Winnow came out on top in terms of delivering food waste, but also engaging our chefs. Now, I always say this, that the partnership that we've made with Winnow isn't just about putting technology in our hotels. Winnow have really helped us engage chefs, create kitchen champions, but most importantly, they've helped us create further partnerships and programs that we've delivered to reduce waste in particular challenging settings. So we had the Green Ramadan program, where we partnered with the United Nations Environment Program, West Asia, and we also had the Green Breakfast program, where we partnered with the UAE National Food Loss and Waste Initiative. Now, we made those partnerships with Winnow, and both of those partners are absolute experts in their area, you know, far more expertise than we are. And they were able to provide us with strategically placed, like authentic and impactful guest messaging that we were able to put in place at our breakfast setting and in those Ramadan celebrations. Now, for those in the room that know, the culture about Ramadan is all about giving and receiving food. So food waste can rise by up to 50% in these settings. And of course, I'm sure you're all staying in a hotel last night and tonight. You know how important breakfast is to that hotel stay. We in the trial hotels, there were just 13, and we serve about 1.9 million breakfasts every year. So what did that look like? We put the guest messaging all across the guest journey in the buffet setting. And then on top of that, Winnow were able to tell us exactly what the most wasted items were. So the best example of this, they said that bread and pastries were wasted the most at that setting. So what did we do in response? We simply placed that messaging that UNEP provided, which is wonderful. During the Ramadan, it was double the blessings, half the wastes. So I know they spoke about nudges earlier, but you know how positive that messaging is, and it had a massive impact. So we placed the messaging according to where Winnow guided us. Not only that, but then we were able to work with our chefs to find out solutions. And these solutions are so simple. So all of that technology, all of these partnerships, the end result is basically we changed the culture of chefs seeing waste as an opportunity. So you've all been there at breakfast, you're walking through, you have your plate, and you take that last croissant. What our chefs were able to notice is that's going to waste using the Winnow system, and they simply reduce the size of that croissant. The guest is still very welcome, we're still hospitable, they are still very welcome to take that. They're just more likely to finish it, or at least waste less.
So was the messaging just for the chefs and the staff about how portion size and how much to put out, or was it to the guests to make them feel guilty?
Certainly not making the guest feel guilty, Corby. There was two types. So positive guest messaging at the buffet. Types of messaging that encourage food reduction. So double the blessings, half the waste. Getting people to rethink that default waste scenario or that default culture of sharing as much food as possible, and linking them that there is still double the blessings, there is still goodness, there is still positive culture in less waste. So that's the guest messaging side, and then we've got the fantastic chef messaging side and all of the data that comes from the Winnow platform. So all of that waste is going in the bin. Winnow can simply say, bread and pastries, you're wasting too much, and chefs can take away and respond to that.
I hope everyone in the audience, anyone who's worked for a food bank, knows what everybody's offered all the time is bread and croissant. The amount of waste every day is really continues to be shocking. So if you've got any tips on how general U.S. food service outside of Ramadan and breakfast can reduce food, bread waste, that would be great. So in the case of yours, was it putting out less bread, making smaller croissant? What was it?
Making smaller croissants, putting out less bread, rethinking how we're displaying that bread as well. And take fruit as an example. Fruit is also wasted very regularly in our breakfast settings and the Ramadan setting as well. Just changing the way we cut fruit, just changing the way we portion fruit. So, instead of a large bucket of watermelon, putting it in a smaller display. All of these small changes can make a really big reduction on food waste, and at the same time, not impact guests' satisfaction at all. Guests won't even notice that it's cut differently, it's cut smaller. They're still welcome to go and take, but there's food waste reductions in the background without.
Great. And do we have to, I'm about to move to Lorena, but if anyone here is working in food service and wants to find all of these tips, are they deeply behind firewalls in Winnow and you have to pay an enormous subscription fee? Or, is it available and we can get the fruits of your interest and
No, it's
reduction?
available. And I think, we're through these partnerships, we're trying to change the hospitality and the hotel setting and the way we're laying out breakfast. And of course, we're making that data available, and we're working on a white paper which will simply summarize all of those simple changes. And there's plenty more partnerships that we have with WWF, Refed, where that information is available too.
And Refed. Great. We will look forward to that.
Appreciate it.
Lorena, how did you take these insights and start? I promised I wouldn't talk about Swedish meatballs, and here I am asking about meatballs at IKEA.
Thank you, Corby. And thank you, Harry, because you just set the stage beautiful for what I want to share. Talking about accent, by the way, here you go, next level up. So back at 2016, we committed to scale our efforts to reduce food waste. We knew with our reach and our size, we could do pretty much a very big impact, but we didn't have all the answers. So we had a couple of options. We could sit down and scratch our heads and trying to be intelligent, or we chose to go the other way. So we partner also with Winnow. They are the guys in the room today, right? We partner with Winnow with a slightly different angle. So we used their knowledge back then in 2016. They were a startup in London. And we partnered with them to use their experience, their technological know-how, to co-develop a solution that was tailored to our volumes, our dynamics, our 400 restaurants. And what we did is we opened up our kitchens, and we use our kitchens as a playground. We test and we try together. And we invite all of our coworkers to co-develop the solution. And what that generated is a lot of engagement from everyone working within our restaurants. They are the true ambassadors. They are the ones making it happen. Then it was, I was back in UK. I was in the UK team back then. And I can tell you that co-developing together a solution is truly energizing, is very powerful. So I invite the many people to please involve your coworkers. They have the answers and they have the power. They meet the customer every day.
Can you give us an image of what a solution was that you co-developed?
So is this AI technology vision? So it's very, very simple. So a coworker that serves food, they take the leftovers when they are serving, because of course you can have food for a long period of time out there.
Right.
So if I use the sample of chips in the UK, they could see that they were putting in the basket the chips, and the solution will measure and will weigh how much that waste was, and at the end of the day they will have a report. So that coworker will know that what they produce and serve that day, how they will have to adjust the production going forward. So it's giving them real ownership on the food they serve every day.
So it's a question of data, and then that affects their production plans.
Precisely.
And for the next day.
Precisely.
Okay, we have a lot of Winnow support here, and somebody from Winnow in the front row. Thank you, that's great. And now we have Elliott, who's going to pull back 30,000 feet to gigantic warehouses and gigantic 18-wheelers, and the idea of telling enormous supermarket chains and food service organizations how to order more smartly so there's less waste.
Yeah, so by way of background, I work for Lineage. Lineage is the largest food warehouser in the world. We have about 500 sites. Imagine Home Depot times 3, double its height, insulate it well, bring it down to 0 Fahrenheit, and fill it with food. We touch approximately a third of the frozen and refrigerated cargo consumed in the U.S. Now, these facilities are sitting upstream of largely 3 markets. So there's retail, where you go to the grocery store, there's food service, restaurants, and then there's import-exports. The U.S. is the largest agricultural exporter in the world. On the supply chain level, there's a couple things that we do to lower food waste. The first is we've been roboticizing a lot. And if you add robotics to these operations, they allow you to cycle food much faster through the system. It lands on the consumer with more shelf life. They're less likely to have to throw it away. The second is better predictive accuracy on what's needed when and where. So if you send too little food to a certain location, you're going to anger your customers. You're going to lose revenue. You might have to send an emergency 18-wheeler across North America if you run out of something. Alternatively, if you send too much food, this is perishable inventory, and so it's use it or lose it. If you send too much, then you have to dump it. Now, with advances in AI, ML, and better data access, we've been able to hone those predictions much more tightly. And a lot of that transpired during COVID because we had to proactively position inventory so that the U.S. didn't run out during panic buying. But then if we do catch food waste in the system, we're very often trying to perform a diving catch to then try to reroute it somewhere useful.
Can you bring us into an 18-wheeler with 50 kinds of yogurt that you were talking about, sort of dictating what the customer was going to get through emergency powers of COVID?
Yeah, so most U.S. supply chain is set up like a pull system. So the demanders of food, retailers, for example, will place orders with inventory owners, and then we will fulfill those orders. During the COVID panic buying waves, particularly for New York City and in the early phases of the pandemic, we started having customers devolve inventory management decisions to us. So instead of sending 50 types of yogurt on an 18-wheeler into Perth Amboy to feed retailers in New York City, we would only send 20, but instead of that truck being half or 2/3 full, that we overfulfilled the orders and filled that truck to have it be more efficient, knowing that there was going to be demand for it in New York for COVID.
But then did you convince your customers that this was actually more efficient and better and they should continue it post-COVID?
In the subsequent years we have, COVID was such an emergency that we said, basically, you either are getting underfulfilled or overfulfilled. We are not sending you exactly what you want. And so we had no choice because we had this huge unplanned transient spike in demand coupled with a labor shortage. And so, but that opened the door to a lot more collaboration across the food industry to make better decisions for the benefit of the system, as opposed to provide exactly what someone said they wanted, even though that's not what they needed.
And then is it enter robotics, which slowly but surely picks off every human being and replaces their job? Could you tell us what robotics does more
Yeah.
efficiently and what it actually looks like as you practice it?
Yeah, so in a lot of our new facility designs, our robots do things that humans would be physically incapable of doing. For example, we've been over-indexing on layer picking. It makes a very nice pallet sent into the retailers, but this giant robot comes from Denmark, so we call it the Norse hand of God. Giant robot comes down and can palm 200 kilograms worth of layers, worth of inventory. And that's how, for example, you have 25 types of bacon available in a grocery store. Those grocery stores might need tons of material, but they need tons of material spread across 25 different SKUs. And so those robots are fulfilling that.
And did you reduce your workforce in favor of robotics? Now, he was not prepared for this question.
I mean, we've been expanding, so most of these robots are in new construction, greenfield construction. In general, no one wants to go do unnecessary work in a freezer. And so if you're asking someone to go into one of these giant frozen warehouses, you're asking someone to go perform physical manual labor with heavy weights in a 0 Fahrenheit environment. No one wants to be asked to do that unnecessarily, knowing that there's a technology that can do it for them.
You've sold us, at least on the walk-in freezer example. Thank you. Harry, I'm all set to think about the Sydney Opera House, and you told me you've got yet better examples, but tell us what you do and how you've been putting it into practice.
Corby, thanks. Yeah, I ambushed Corby on the way here. I'm David from RAP, and we work around the world tackling food waste and food system at a really practical level. So I see some good examples of things that work. And I wanted to be the voice of positivity here today because I am seeing partnerships in the world which are reducing food waste and are working. And therefore, I think perhaps as we finish this panel, we can go away with some hope. Corby's right. I wanted to talk about the Sydney Opera House, first of all. You can all imagine the Sydney Opera House. It's a beautiful building. And around the outside of the Sydney Opera House is the Sydney Opera House Cafe, which serves about 3,000 covers a day. It's a pretty big space, and through a partnership with government funding, philanthropic funding, a technical AI solutions provider, RAP technical expertise, the expertise of the chefs and the staff that are working in the Opera House Cafe, we went through a process of reducing their food waste by 33%. And if they can do it, the owners of that location actually own another 5 or 6 large venues across Sydney, so they're able to roll that out across the city and bring food waste down really well. But there's a couple of other things, just hearing the examples of the other panelists here today and also some of the things that people were talking about earlier. There's another example of a project we worked on. It started in Australia with Woolworths and GS1, the barcode people, embedding extra details into 2D barcodes, so there's better forecasting and inventory tracking management. Just as Elliott was saying, that reduces the amount of over or under supply, and particularly we're looking at oversupply in the supply chain. That food have all become surplus and either thrown away, possibly redistributed, but there's a lot of restrictions on that, and so that food would likely end up in landfill. And we've taken the learnings from that project in Australia. We're now applying that in South Africa with some big retailers and their supply chains in South Africa. So as we build this sort of global movement, people can learn from each other around the world and see the solutions that really work. And then the final one, I just wanted to mention, somebody earlier mentioned the Use It Up tape, and that is really cool, actually. And that reminded me of a partnership that's happening right now in the city of Denver with Sprouts, and I noticed that Sprouts were a sponsor today, so shout out to them. Providing packs to shoppers that come into Sprouts stores in Denver, and also through the city, a partnership between the retailer, RAP, and the city to provide people with that Use It Up tape with recipes, portion size advice, and real practical hints and tips as they go through the shop. And as they live in their homes, that they can use to reduce food waste. Because, as we heard earlier, nobody really wants to waste food. People are looking for advice in how to do that. And if you can reach people through the city that they live in and the shops that they go to, you reach pretty much everyone, because everyone lives somewhere or shops somewhere. And that's a really powerful way to get messages across. So yeah, 3 really practical examples, Corby. I know I said I would only speak about one, but I love to go off on a tangent.
This is great. So I think that what we've heard this morning is that it's an example of logistics and operations efficiency, and also messaging the people who work both behind the scenes and end-use customers, which has been de-emphasized. I mean, everybody wants to know that, but you are all working on things that help from the very beginning to the very end. So we can learn a lot of messages from all of you, and we all want to look and find winnows and other information that's going to help us with everybody we work with and collaborate with. So I wanted to thank David, Lorena, Harry, and Elliott for a really fascinating group of people, and of course Food Tank for bringing us all together. Thank you.